Leave your ego at the door and get ready to be raw. This is Strength to Overcome, where real men find their strength in weakness. Hi guys, welcome back to the Strength to Overcome podcast. I'm Ryan with my co-host Matt. We're here for another episode. I think I've lost count at this point, brother. What number are we at?
You know, it's funny, just before you went live there on me, I was about to say, hey, what episode is this? So the fact that you asked that question means that we both don't know, but what I do think that means is that we've got some legs on this thing, and looks like we're going the distance for a little while.
Yeah, I think it must be number 17 because I remember last week with Grant I was 16, I believe. So we're on number 17 and coming off a solid episode with Grant. That was a crazy story he told last week. I got like 3 or 4 people message me telling me how crazy it was listening to it.
You know, it was, and I've heard the story before when I first met Grant a handful of years ago, but to hear it again in detail is just jaw-dropping stuff. I mean, he should be dead, and you know, as he said, even off camera, he's like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's been a lot more. So, I mean, the man's been through some stuff, and it was definitely a powerful reminder of just how fast your life can change, and I know I've gone through that, and you're going through it too, right?
Yeah, and he was a heck of a golfer at the time too. I mean, I'm sure he's still pretty good, but like you said, he had just shot 64 and he was, kind of making his way through the ranks of pro golf, right?
Well, with that sort of pedigree, you'd expect him to, and of course he had the high caliber golfers in the family, you know, Nick Price and obviously Ledbetter there as well. So, I mean, you know, he had every reason to go, go somewhere with his golfing career. So to see it unfold the way it did is it's just an amazing story. But maybe we'll get him back on the show for whatever else he's got to share. But so many out there I've run into in the last couple of weeks. But I want to hear a little bit about you. I know the audience is keen to hear, what's going on as a new father and the baby, and you've had guests, I know, but I don't know a lot of the details. And this week we pretty much haven't really caught up in person or via phone or anything. Just a few texts here and there to encourage each other. But I told you, right before we went live, I said, let's not catch up before we go live. Let's actually catch up, and that way I get to react to what it is that's going on in your life. So go ahead and give me the update, because we haven't really done anything for 2 weeks with the guest episode there in the middle. So snapshot it for me. I know you've had a lot going on. Give it to me.
Yeah, we've had, I guess my dad and stepmom come down to visit, so they were here for a week. They stayed in an Airbnb that was right down the street, so they could just walk over. And they were here for a full week. And then on the back end of their visit, Erica's friend Erin came to visit for a few days as well. So she, my parents were here Monday through Sunday. And, Erin showed up Friday and was here Friday through Monday and stayed with us here in the guest room. So it was a busy, 9 or 10 days of hosting and also trying to keep a human baby alive at the same time. And I think both Erica and I were just kind of worn out after everybody left. It was like, wow, we gotta recharge the batteries here a little bit.
Yeah, and I know that having guests or family with you for an extended period of time can take its toll, no matter how much you love them and get along, especially with a new one. What did you find was the biggest challenge of having people around?
It was just hard to stay in our own rhythm of what we're doing day to day with Callan and trying to get, keep the schedules aligned, but then, also trying to have dinner with somebody or cook dinner at a different time here or go out here. It was just kind of interrupted the normal daily flow that we've gotten into or trying to establish with his feeding times and sleeping times and all that. So that was probably the biggest challenge, but it wasn't too bad. And, Erin was a big help when she was here. She was changing diapers and watching them, feeding them for us and that sort of thing. So it was kind of cool to have her do that and take care of Erica a little bit while she was here as well.
So who's looking after you? Sounds like you're trying to figure that out, but what's happening in your brain as we sort of count down this clock to you being the main man in action here?
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of the man on the island a little bit, I guess. It's just kind of flying by the seat of my pants and getting the experience and the reps day by day. Every day seems to kind of run together. And like I said before, it's just kind of a monotonous 3 hour loop that we're going on here. But, his wake windows are starting to get longer and he's starting to interact a little bit more. And so it's good, but it's also a challenge for us because now we're like, oh crap, what do we do? Now that he's not sleeping 20 hours a day, it's like, oh, we got to actually do something with him here. So we've been doing some tummy time and try to strengthen. He's got a flat head in the back, so we're trying to. Apparently, he's got to do more tummy time to strengthen up those muscles in the back of his head and neck. Doing stuff like that, and you won't believe it, but he's actually sleeping through the night right now. He's not even 6 weeks old, and he's sleeping like from 9:30 at night when we feed him until 6 a.m. Nuts. So pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's going to get you about 300 comments from all our female listeners that want to slap you upside the head
Yeah.
because it's funny, been Ubering a lot lately, which we'll get to, but I had a guy just last night, and he was going out to just catch up with some buddies, and I said, well, how often do you do this? Once a week? He's like, once a week, And of course, the story divulges into, he's got a 6-month-old at home, and when a baby doesn't sleep through the night for 6 months, you can imagine the strain that can put on you. And then that's what happened to us. We were 6 months in and Callie wasn't sleeping through the night. So for you to say, Callan is sleeping through the night at 6 weeks, you're, hopefully speaking about something that, doesn't change, right? Let's hope
Yeah.
that continues because, months and months and months on end, you really do start to lose grip of what day of week it is and how to even process, conflict and everything we've been working through for the last 16 episodes kind of falls by the wayside when you don't have any sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been good that we've been getting.
And what have
So
you found for you to get away from that during the time you've had some help? Have you been able to get out, work out? You going for a walk? What are you doing to maintain the balance of keeping your identity as Mr. Ryan Robertson?
not a lot, not a lot. Been the tough part. I've been kind of sedentary, so we're thinking about. I've been tossing around the idea of getting back into the gym a couple days a week and trying to get that going again and see how that flows. But definitely got to figure out some identity stuff on that side of things.
Yeah, for everyone that hasn't listened to the earlier episodes, Ryan's obviously got this ability to zero in on something, but when it's a baby and you can't do 100% of what's needed, so you kind of find yourself torn, right? I mean, what do you, as you close in on this time where you're going to be the stay-at-home dad, what are you looking to as the greatest challenge that's upcoming so that you can get ahead of it now?
Probably just the isolation factor, right, of being on my own and having that weight to carry every day is probably the biggest challenge I can see ahead of me. So figuring out how that's going to work and what kind of support network we can come up with and different outlets I can have to be able to get away and that sort of thing.
Have you checked out if there's any, groups or, I mean, this is a long shot, but, anything that where there's guys or any kind of a, men's group or anything that you could sort of tap into? Is there anything like that? I dare say there's not, but, who knows, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look into it and see. So we'll have to. That's we got about 6 weeks left. She's about halfway through her maternity leave, so we got about 6 weeks, and just trying to get things set up to where they're going to be good when she's back to work.
Now, what have you guys run into as far as between you and Erica? Obviously, life has changed forever now. So what's the challenge? There's challenges that have, maybe caught up on you or, come back or snuck up. What's the, I guess I'm looking for the open, vulnerable Ryan here, but what do you find is the most challenging between you two now?
It's probably just going to be trying to stay connected and keep our relationship going in terms of her and I versus just us worrying about taking care of the baby all the time and still setting aside time for dates and, that sort, alone time with the two of us and date nights and all that, that's probably going to be the biggest challenge of the whole thing. So that's another thing we got to kind of dial in as we go.
Yeah, it's a lot. Do you find now that you've got a better understanding of those that do have kids and those that don't? No disrespect to anyone listening that doesn't have kids, but the generalization of those that don't have them don't really understand how much life just completely gets flipped on its head. Are you starting to get a taste now of what those that have been before you and had kids say? Man, once you've had it, until you've had them, you really don't know how fast a day can disappear or even a week.
Yeah. Yeah, starting to figure that out, with all the days running together and hours, and it's like I said, just a continuous loop of 3 hours of feeding, sleep, diaper, playtime. Yeah, it's definitely something different. So, and it'll be constantly changing, I'm sure.
Yeah, this early phase is a little slow, but you're going to be hit your sweet spot here soon. I can just feel it. But there's definitely a difference between being able to come and go as you please and do what you want to all of a sudden, no sleep, no rhythm, no communication outside of what you're going through, and it can be hard. I think guys can and girls can tend to isolate into your environment, and before you know it, it's been a year or two, and you got to kind of reinvent yourself. So I'll keep encouraging you on the side and through our podcast to, find those outlets and get that gym membership going and find some date nights and find someone that you can trust to be a babysitter, right? I'm going to keep pushing you to do all that because, we didn't do, or I should speak for myself, I didn't do a great job during this time that you're going through. We had the mother-in-law living with us for about the first year, and that created its own dynamic of stress that you don't get those times back, and things you say and do create a little bit of tension there where there may not have otherwise been some, and so that can be a really tough time you're going through. So you've really got to find something that you can have as your own as soon as you can. If it's fitness or if it's hitting some balls or getting great relationships going with some strangers you don't know yet. Something you got to have something you can dive in on outside of baby Callan.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, man? What's going on in your world?
Oh my goodness, mate. I honestly don't even remember where we really left off last time that question was asked. I think I could start with where I'm at right now and then I'll work backwards until the dots are connected maybe. But I've been Ubering as a driver in my sports van, the very sports van that's got some mechanical issues. And I've been on the fence for quite a while about whether I just drive this thing off a bridge. Obviously not with a passenger or myself in it, but making that decision's been really challenging because obviously finances have been a real struggle. And now the van that's become the mechanical anchor is also now my income breadwinning vehicle. And so I'm really in this tight pinch where I need to get rid of this thing and dump the debt that I carry in that. But at the same time, I'm using it to Uber, and I think you and I have talked about these addictive personalities we have, right? So you get out there and you start Ubering, and one ride turns into 5, turns into 10, turns into 10 or 12 hours behind the wheel for the day. And, that takes its toll on my hand, gets swollen, my elbow, my shoulder, it's frozen still, of course. And so I get home from a 10 or 12 hour shift and I kind of wonder, what the hell am I doing? But the question still remains is, am I in a position where I could get back into some training? And so that's the damage that I can do driving, but it's also the income I can bring in at the same time. So it's a real two-edged sword. And I think for me, I'm at that point where I've got to make make another decision. And I was thinking the other day as I was driving around, man, I'm kind of worn out making big decisions. I think that's where I get exhausted. It's just one big decision after another, and we've talked about that a lot in the previous episodes. But I find myself still battling. Wow, I've lost all this weight. Don't have the muscle tissue that I want, but I really can't get back into it the way I want to right now so that I don't overdevelop my left side and create an imbalance, right? I did have some interviews. I went the distance with one company. I had 3 interviews, one over the phone, one Zoom call. and then one in person about 40 minutes from here. I think things went pretty well. And, you know, in the end, it was, probably down to, me and a few other people out of the 100 plus applicants. And, I'll be honest, at the end of the day, I'm older than probably the crew they're looking to build. It's a real estate investment company. And, I'm in a position where I've got to hustle outside of a new job to keep the bread on the table. And I think they probably, looking for someone that's 25 and hungry and not married with kids, right? So, I
Mhm.
kind of rule myself out by being honest, which is fine. But I've got to be upfront and say, listen, I got to make money doing this straight away. Coming in and getting a 100% commission position sounds great until you got to put 10 hours a day into that and make nothing, and then you got to get behind the wheel of an Uber sort of situation to try and make payments on things. And so that was a real challenge for me to not get that gig, but at the same time, it's maybe a sign that maybe that's not the gig for me at this point. And while I was waiting for the answer on that, I kind of passed up another opportunity that had come my way. So, the dominoes feel like they're all lined up. You see those YouTube videos where they push the first one and it's like a 10-minute video and they've got these dominoes all around the house and it's just an elaborate setup. I kind of feel like I'm in that position where I've kind of got this domino set up and I'm almost ready to kind of get started into something, but the shoulder's not ready, the hand's still swollen, and I can't really work for anyone that's 100% commission. So I've I find myself again in this position of having to make big decisions for the house and the car and providing, right? And so it's just this constant pressure cooker environment of making decisions. And I think that's where we get worn out as guys. I've had so many passengers share their stories, which I won't go into detail. I think I'd probably break the rules doing that. But I've shared a lot of my story with passengers that are, in the car for 30 to 60 minutes or more. And the podcast, and you'd be shocked at just how many guys out there are going through some tough times and have taken the details down of the podcast to the point where I'm almost going to have to start making cards so I can hand out that instead of my real estate license card and say, you know what, check out this podcast because there's an enormous amount of guys out there that are going through a lot of what we're going through. So I know that was a long answer right there. I didn't even take a breath. Let me grab some water.
No, I can see how that's all that lumped into a few week span, right? You talk about getting burned out and, from decision fatigue, and it's a real thing. So I can see how that would take its toll. And what do you think? What do you think's on the horizon for you? You thinking about sticking with the Uber thing?
Well, I've got this vehicle that I'm just racking up the miles on, and it needs some work on it, right? So, pouring money into a car that's just getting destroyed on its value doesn't make a lot of sense. Going back down that commission only path of real estate, it's appealing because of the money these people can make. But when you really dig in on it, I think I'll find that most of those people are chasing the dollar and maybe they don't have family, maybe they don't have little kids, so no disrespect to those that are doing it, but I'm not in a position where I can really do that and check the boxes off of being a present dad, right? So, I've really entertained the training side. I think I'm narrowing it down. I did find a place not too far from here. I shot you a link to that. And it looks just like 180, you know,
Okay.
my gym that I had for 10 years back in Virginia, where you and I actually met and began this journey. And, the key fob entry, the private little foyer there, and then the really nice setup with the rubberized flooring and, training studio for those that want to get it done and not necessarily be part of, a big box gym type of environment, right? So there's some real appeal to that. And I know what that looks like. I know what I can bring. And so I've just got to see, I kind of waiting to sort of see if that's something that's going to open up for me or if I do end up back in a big box gym. But I really find myself limited, which is just challenging me, in so many ways. I can't even describe it by this shoulder and not being able to provide. And I mean, of course, that just means I Uber like a madman. Wake up real early and I'd roll out of bed and jump in the sports van and just go to town, right? And Uber and Uber and Uber until I run out of daylight. It's a long day behind the wheel, in and out, but it can keep bread on the table, but it's not sustainable. So here we are in this position where, and I know I feel like we're almost collecting the last 4 months of episodes here in one, where we've talked about challenging, career choices or recovering from injuries and, trying to reinvent yourself. And it's exhausting to not know what the plan is and try and figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of energy out of you, doesn't it? It's like, you're just having to wheels are constantly turning and it's like trying to solve a big puzzle constantly.
It really is. I had my sister and my brother-in-law out here for a few weeks, and that was a really tough time. I gone through, that process of getting the big offer to move to California and just didn't get any traction on, that discussion. I think, obviously we didn't take that offer and the missus didn't want to do that. And I get why. And there's reasons we've talked about in other episodes. But, that was a tough time while family were here. And that slowed down that rebuilding of that relationship there and just created a real pressure cooker environment in a lot of relationships. Because I think people want to help me, but they don't know how. And I want their help, but I don't know how to get it. And so, I'm finding myself just Ubering and getting that time behind the wheel as almost a release, if that makes any sense. It's almost like this is the one thing in my life I can control, and it does provide at the same time. And I've had some amazing passages. It's been fantastic. The sort of passenger where you drop off and you're like, man, I love this job. This is so much damn fun. I could do this for a living. And then you spend the next hour behind the wheel and you get $4 because there's no one out there that wants a ride, right? It's like, well, that's great if picking up people that you connect with so quickly that you feel like, wow, I've just made a friend, to, oh crap, I'm not making any money. And, they can't go hand in hand. I don't have that luxury. And part of our story is the financial side, trying to make some really significant decisions here that I can't talk about. And that takes a toll, right? It takes a toll on your marriage, your household, your finances. It takes a toll on your reputation and trying to figure out, okay, wow, I'm an Uber driver, right? Now I got all these skills and talent that I feel like I can give, and here I am as an Uber driver. And I think there might be a little bit of that creep in on you, right? As you come up to being that stay-at-home dad, right? You've got value in what you're doing, but you might go, great, now I'm a stay-at-home dad, right? And so I think there's probably some voices that have crept in on both of us the last couple of weeks going, is this it? Not as in, is this it? Is this the one? It's more like, crap, is this all there is to me right now? Do you I see you nodding. For those that are listening, Ryan's nodding, but are you feeling that a little bit, or is it offset?
Yeah. It's like you said, it's finding the value in that stay-at-home dad role for me. And, I know there is value in there big time. It's comparing it to all the skills and talents that I've got in the outside world and having to set those aside and say, hey, this is my new gig. This is what's in front of me. Kind of like Stretch was talking about with his kids and, making that the new talent, the new challenge. It's almost like I want to put on my Facebook, professional dad as my career now, right? It's professional dad as of July 2025, because that's truly what I've got to do to kind of get my head right with it and put my best foot forward each day for him.
Are you finding that it doesn't make any money, and so it feels like it's wow, I should be making money? I mean, does that roll into your brain?
Yeah, well, I've got a little bit of a business mindset. So yeah, it's like I love the idea of generating ideas that generate income. That's just kind of it's a dopamine hit type of thing, right? So there's no diaper change that gets me paid, right? So I'm definitely doing it for free, so to speak. But I think there is a little bit of that creeps in. It's not an entrepreneurial journey that I'm undertaking right now.
Yeah, I know Stretch talked a lot about that, and I found that as I'm buzzing around Ubering, you get a good ride, you get a good tip, and you're like, all right, I'm doing something. I'm the man. It's like, yeah, Matt, you're in a sports van picking people up, in the dark, taking them to work. Like, yeah, you're the man. But because there was that immediate change on my little app that says you made an extra $10, there's this fix of, whew, that feels good,
Yeah.
and it's not enough and it's not sustainable, but there's something to that. I think for what it's worth, guys generally have been, the breadwinners, and now here you are in the situation where your wife is going to be the breadwinner. I'm in a situation where I'm trying to still be a breadwinner, but not doing a great job because of my surgery and recovery. But there's something to that. Wow, I made a few bucks by what I did. Something I did made a few bucks.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was cool. Yeah, like when we had the gyms, that was the cool thing. You got to look at your income report every day and make a sale and look at the numbers go up, watch the money hit the bank account. That was all cool when we were in the business world, right? And so, yeah, missing that a little bit these days for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to, as we go through these conversations, I always get so much out of you know, these shoots as we call them, and I'm sitting here thinking, there is value in being in the trenches, and no disrespect to those that have been in trenches and have taken live fire. It's not maybe the best phrase to use, but when things are really tough and you're really trying to find value in what you're doing, I find myself just saying, Matt, just right now, this is what you can do. So just be the best damn Uber driver you can. You know, Something's
Hmm.
going to change. There'll be a passenger, there'll be a recovery, turnaround, something, right? Have you been able to sort of tell yourself that and lean on Stretch's episode, which for those that didn't listen, you need to go back and listen to the retired NBA player that is now, a stay-at-home dad to 6 kids. I mean, can you imagine that step? Not a step down, but that step. Oh, it's a different direction. Have you been able to lean on that a little bit to just get you through? Because, I mean, you haven't even really started yet, but I can see and feel in our communication that that's really running through your brain.
Yeah, yeah. I've been kind of thinking about what he said and trying to equate that value. Like, all right, this diaper change, it's more important than you make it out to be, right? It's do it right, and take joy in it, take pride in it, and try to enjoy the little moments throughout the day that you could see them as having to slog through a bunch of crap, but if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what we're trying to do is with raising a child, it's actually everything's really important throughout the day from the moment he gets up to the moment we put him down to sleep. Everything's got to be dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, many would argue that your job is the hardest job and it's the most important and it's the most rewarding, right? I mean, for those that have been through it, you're actually checking all the boxes. It just doesn't pay anything. What you're actually doing matters. It matters to you and Erica. It matters to him. It matters to the future, right? To your future, to his future. And as your family grows, it matters to everyone, right? I mean, I think there's a book I shot over to you that, may not make a lot of sense right now, but it's quickly going to make a lot of sense about, you know, how fast they start to learn, and they're crafty little buggers. They start to manipulate, and you probably watched him doing it already, right? Where he's learned how to cry to get more attention or longer attention, or extend his wake time, right? He's starting to manipulate his surroundings, right? And we did the same to our folks, and someone one day will do it to him, right? But they're developing all this early, so your work right now is the hardest job I think known to man.
Yeah. Yeah. I can feel it. I'd agree with it. It's tough.
But finding value in what we do, I think during this phase for me is important to realize not everything you do every single day is going to matter. And you know, to give you a decent example, this happened just I think it was yesterday. I'm losing track of what days, but I was having a really slow morning, and I mean I'm talking about I'm not even making minimum wage, and I'm using my own gas, so I'm losing money at this point. And I'm like, having a down and out morning, and you stop and I'll pray and say, hey, bring me a ride that needs some help, or bring me a ride where, someone can help me, right? One or the other, like, something, a connection. I'm looking for something, and I'm sitting there, and I get this really short, small ride to a store, and I'm like, what the hell? It's something, right? So, I run these people down to a store, and quite often I'll have a really quick connection with people, and I can hand off my business card, and more often than not, I never hear from people again. But in this case, I was out buzzing around and doing my thing. I'd actually come home to just work through some stuff here at the house on some things. Heather was with the kids, and so I buzzed home, and we had a blue, as an Aussie would call it, right? You just have a tough time working through the challenges that we're going through, right? I said, you know what, to hell with it. I'm going back out. I'm going to go back out to Uber, and I get this ride, not far from the house, and it takes me to an exit down the freeway. And while I'm dropping this ride off, I get a call that says, "Hey Matt, not sure if you're still in the area or if you're available, but we've finished at the store that you dropped us off at, a couple of hours earlier. Just wondering if you could maybe help us out. We know you've got the van." So I call them back and said, "Hey, cancel the ride," because they had just booked a ride, and having not heard from me, but I said, "Cancel the ride. I'm coming in hot. Let me come get you." So I actually ended up, halfway there already because of the previous ride, and I ended up picking these folk up. I won't do too many details because I don't want to, break any rules, but ended up picking these folk up and loading all this stuff into the sports van, which, wouldn't have got into any other van type sort of scenario, and ended up taking them somewhere to help them out. And it turned out that I was able to help them out again by being flexible and, waiting around a little bit, and then taking them somewhere else and waiting around a little bit, and then taking them to a spot to help them, unload. And, I don't want to share their story. It's not their story to tell, but I was able to have this enormous impact in their afternoon by just this tiny little ride that I'd had earlier in the morning, and felt impressed enough to call me, and I felt impressed enough to be able to, take the call and, get back down there to help them out. And so, what turned from a very small morning to this really tiny ride that I said, yeah, what the hell, let's take that, turned into, connection that later on, we can, communicated outside of that. And, they just shared with me how much it meant to them that I was able to, stop what I was doing to spend more time and go the extra mile with these people, and really impact them, and, change the course of their day, and know that there's someone around that they can kind of lean in on, and get some help if they need to, right? So it was a really powerful day for me, that I come away with that feeling like, wow, I've made a difference. And even though it was as an Uber driver, because I was willing to, hey, I need some help, I need a ride, I need to give, or I need to be given to, right? I want something, I want an interaction, I need something, and some income. And they took care of me, and so it worked out financially to do that, and they were blessed, and I was blessed. And I think quite often we get caught up in our own trouble and our own chaos, and we forget, just be the best at what you can do right now. So that interaction that I was able to have, being open to a very small, $4 or $5 ride, which doesn't pay the bills, but it ended up being a real highlight of my day. And they're great people, and we'll see where that goes. And maybe there's more to that story, because now they have my real estate card too, right? You never know.
Yeah.
You never know what a $5 ride. I don't think it was five. It was $4 and change. You never know what that can turn into. And so I'm kind of just, I look at those interactions and think, you know what, you might just be an Uber driver right now, but you help some people out. And I think to all those that are listening, you might be down and out and feel like you're worthless. And even to you, right? Man, I've just stay-at-home dad. It's like, you know what, just be the best at what you can do, and let the Almighty bring you something, or bring you someone to help, right? And find
Yeah.
value in what you're doing. So that's for you and for everyone listening. And it's for me, really. I needed to just say it out loud to be reminded that just keep doing what you can right now, but just be the best at it.
Good stuff, man. I like it. Matt's message of the day.
Yeah, I'd be a preacher, but no one wants to hear what I've really got to say. They like the soft stuff, and that's not what we do here on Strength to Overcome. So I appreciate you listening, and hopefully someone finds the value. And more than any, I hope it's you that finds the value in what you're doing as a dad. Because
Yeah,
I still
man.
would love to do what you're doing, but I guess right now I'm in a learning phase of humility. So I'll keep doing that. And while you're
Yep.
wiping, a nappy change at 2 in the morning, just be the best at it.
Yep. I like it. All right, brother.
Well, I appreciate it. I know we've got a little delay on this release, and that's just because our lives are full of chaos. So be patient with us, everyone. We're trying our best to keep this streak alive.
Yep.
And Ryan puts all this together. So, shoot him some thanks in some of these comments, please. And let's build that community. I've handed out a lot of cards and asked a lot of guys to check it out. So hopefully we can build it. But can you remind everyone where to go and what to do? Because I'm awful at that.
Yeah, first off, go to YouTube and Strength to Overcome on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. That'd be the best thing. And then if you would, share the podcast with somebody, send it to somebody you know. And always feel free to reach out to us through email. It's info.strengthtoovercome@gmail.com. And you can hit us up there. And we've also got our private Facebook group that's open now. So find us on Facebook. It's the Strength to Overcome community. And request to join that private Facebook group if you're a guy looking for some community.
Awesome, brother. Always a treat. I go away from this feeling absolutely energized. And for those that think we're always like this, we do our best to be like this, but, we struggle like you guys. So, hit us up, please. Ryan, always a pleasure to catch up with you. And stay strong, man. Don't do what I did that one time and change the baby in the middle of the night and forget to put the nappy back on.
Yep, haven't done that yet, so we'll try to stay ahead of the game on that one.
Yeah, just be the best. If you can do that, then you've already bettered me. So keep it up, man. You're doing great. Hang in there.
You got it. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.